the fire department. But that's kind of what it was. I was seeing things as an exchange. And when I started to rough part in my life, I was already kind of becoming more cynical. I've given up on doing artwork. I figured it's going to get like put up in a coffee house. If I'm lucky, it's like end up in a corporate lawn. But it's not going to do anything for anybody. So I was teaching martial arts, and then I found out that I was missing a ligament at the top of my neck. And then I kept doing what I was doing at the level I was doing it at. It wasn't going to end up well. So one of my students had gone out to Burning Man, Strong Sully. Everybody know Sully? So I'm like, Sully, this is just like a rainbow gathering with bigger bonfires. I don't want to be part of it. And he's like, no, he showed me some pictures and told me stories, and after maybe like 2 weeks of this, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So we ended up heading out to Burning Man, and I was right. There's lots of hippies, bigger bonfires, and I was miserable for like the first 3 days. I was like grumbling. I didn't get why everybody was doing what they're doing. But as you can see, I started seeing some really beautiful stuff. These are some of the pictures I took my first year. And all of a sudden, I realized that art didn't have to end up on a coffee house wall, and it didn't have to end up in a corporate lawn. And something started to change a little bit. And as I went to do this more and more, I kept going out. And I really started to have what the fuck experiences. If you've been to Burning Man, you know what I'm saying. You're like walking along and you have like an idea of how the world is, and all of a sudden you see something like a bicyclist on fire going past you. And what the fuck? And you can't wrap your brain around it, right? So, my favorite what the fuck experience was Flight to Mars the first year. And then, yeah, if I had a Flight to Mars, because they this. Well, if you were like me when I was a kid, I used to love the idea of fun houses. And every time I went to a carnival, I'm like, Mom, Dad, by the way, my mom and dad are here, let's give them a hand. Go, Mom, Dad, we gotta go to the fun house. And then every time I came out, I'm like, that fucking sucked. I didn't say that, I was like, fine. But that's what I was thinking, right? So I go up to this fun house, and it's called Flight to Mars, and it is huge, and it's beautiful, and I haven't even gotten inside. And I look behind, and I realize that there's 2 semi-trucks, there's a giant generator, and I can hear a DJ booth going inside. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I go up, and I go up to the guy, and this is my first night, and I'm like, so how much does it cost to go in? And he looks at me like I'm an idiot. I'm doing the math in my head, and I'm like, this thing costs like $15,000. It's like people lost their jobs, people's girlfriends are like, what the hell are you doing? And people got fired over this thing. I'm like, okay, you're gonna be it for free? You're a sucker. And I actually got my money's worth. I went in, I probably spent 9 hours in Flight to Mars over the course of that entire burn. And there's so many things in it that made the little kid in me like, but I think the best was the ball pit of doom. Okay, so you go up to the edge of this ball pit and you jump in, but it's 5 feet down. And you go 5 feet into the balls and you can't get out. There's not a ladder. There's not a door. I guess there were stories of guys tripping balls for like 6 hours and going, what the hell? Let me out, man! They make a lot of their money back by cleaning out everything they find underneath the balls. So anyway, you actually find a way out by diving into the balls, realizing there's a hole to another ball pit on the other side, and you pop back out, right? So I come out of this and I'm like, the kid in me is alive again, and that jadedness I had wasn't quite the same anymore. And that's just one of dozens of things that happened to me this year. And every time I had that what the fuck experience, and all my rigid ideas and beliefs and ideas about the world were dropped, and I came face to face with things that I couldn't understand. One of them was gifting. The fact that people would make $15,000 projects that they didn't get any money for, that I could enjoy as much as I wanted. That I couldn't, and it was cool, but I didn't get it. And then community. As a kid, as a teenager, I thought the community meant conformity, and it usually did. But here was a community that was allowing for every type of expression. It was allowing people to kind of figure out who they were and make mistakes and try it out. And again, I didn't get it. I was confused, and I was clearly missing something. And then I realized about a year in, because I went back to Burning Man the second year and it wasn't the same. And I realized my first year I was having initiatory experiences. And if you know anything about me, I overthink things. So once I realized that I was having these initiatory experiences, I had to figure out how I was having them. Because I had joined the Freemasons because that's what my grandfather did this summer before Burning Man, and it didn't do a damn thing for me. But 4 times a day at Burning Man, I was having my mind blown, and I realized I was in an immersive environment that was different than the everyday world. And I realized that I was immersed in participatory performance and artwork that I could touch and be a part of. And that each time I did that, it created that sense of wonder that would blow my mind, and then I was left faced with something bigger than myself, or something that I couldn't explain with my current beliefs. And then that's that like community, living community. And once I understood what had happened to me, once I knew, I had to do it myself. There's no 2 ways around it. So I was becoming that sucker that I had come across 2 years before. And I realized I needed a story. And what better story for this kind of idiotic thinking than Don Quixote, the man who fell in love with the barmaid and thought she was a princess, who created his own monsters and fought them and lost. And I'm like, you know, that's a good story, but we need a twist. So what if it wasn't that Don Quixote was crazy when he charged those windmills he thought were giants to get caught up in the blades? What if his problem was that he didn't use fire? And that's how the Quixotic Project was born. And then I realized that we needed something audacious. And what's more audacious for a place we have 70-mile-per-hour windstorms on a regular basis than a windmill? And what's better than a windmill? It's not a skinny little windmill, but a touch-style windmill. And what's more audacious than having one thing to burn than 3 giant windmills? And then this is how we came up with this project. So we had a story, but now we needed a plan, because the story inspires, but the plan reassures. This is important, because you need to do both. You need to inspire people, but you gotta let them know, maybe we can pull this off. And so we sent this to the Burning Man, and luckily, they liked both. And they granted us $5,000. It's really nice. We thought. we need a little more than that. We figured that out soon enough. So we first had to assemble a team, and here's the thing. I'm not a carpenter, I'm not an engineer, and I'm not a producer. So I had to find people who were good at these things. And so we started to build a team out of the community, and many of these people are here tonight. The other thing I knew from martial arts is that another thing about, I learned from the martial arts thing, okay, is that when you try something new, you're going to make mistakes a lot. So we made prototypes, because these had to stand up, they had to take the winds, and they had to burn perfectly. So we didn't leave burn scars. That didn't work either. So, quickly realized we were running out of money, we ended up throwing Quixotica. Quixotica was our fundraiser. It was a place that we could test the 10-foot version of our windmill that you see here. But I gotta say, it was the first time I realized that this formula I had might actually be right. Because I met people here, and I had experiences this night that have stayed with me ever since. In fact, this is your lovely bartender Rabbit back here in the corner. I met her that night. Met Eagle that time for the first time, Lisa Barnett. People have been my friends ever since. And now we had some money in our pockets, so we went back to building. And so we are out here building a 20-foot version. We got to test one of them. I don't know why Granny's building a tree. That's not what we're doing. But most of us were building the windmills. By the way, Granny was a core member of Flight to Mars, and him and Greg Larson are our 2 key members who ended up making this project actually happen. So give them a hand, even though Granny couldn't be here tonight. Then we took it across the country. You can tell from our faces here that there's stories, but we don't have time for them, sorry. Then we got the Burning Man. We built the mills, a lot of work, a lot of fun. We blisters, splitters, sleepless nights. It was great. Good stories. But finally we got the giants built. Okay, and so you see the 3 giants here. And we made sure this is part of the Quixotic Project. Every time we do something, you got to make it participatory. Have the audience involved somehow. So we could go inside and you can take a piece of wood, you can leave your monsters, you can leave your demons, and I read things in there that made me cry. right when I came across them. But more than that, over the next 3 years, people came back to me and told me stories. I heard about a first kiss in the windmills, first fuck in the windmills, 2 marriages, and these things are letting me know that that formula was working. We made it look pretty at night. And we had the battle, right? So we had warriors versus demons, 24 fire performers, because that's another what the fuck experience I had that first year. When I saw fire performers come out for the first time, and then out of that came the knights with 9-foot flaming lances, because how better to take down the windmills. They also had 3 feet of fire, and the fire didn't stay in place, so that was a problem. Also, you see here, this is probably like 2 seconds after this was lit. So we use a little bit of gas. So you can see when you watch the video, Chris is charging it, he's engulfed in flames, and he's running away kind of shit. I did it, I saw him, I like half threw it, I twisted my ankle and fell down. Tim TD was smart, he launched it like a lance in his mouth. So you learn as you go, that's what I'm saying.
Safety bird!
So what remains, right? These burned out. These burned out, but if the formula works, it's going to work in people. It's not going to work in anybody. It's just like Don Quixote. People are going to think you're an idiot. People are going to say you can't do it, you're doing it wrong. But if you get one person who comes up to you and they said, this touched me, this changed me, that's why you do it. That's why they build Flight to Mars. And if it works, it's going to work on you too. My first year was amazing. My second year was painful. My third year blew my first away. And I wish I could go into the stories, but again, we don't have enough time for that tonight. But we had to keep going. And now we want to bring it back to Detroit. We want to bring it back to the city. And I talked to Ken, I talked to John over at Theater Bazaar, because we want to do something immersive. They were already doing something immersive, so we're better to do this. And they agreed and they let us, and so we did a film noir themed performance called Theater Noir. And then we had the great Sparkly Devil Rest her soul. She passed on last year. This was her last performance in Detroit before moving to LA. Revolver's last performance in Detroit before moving to LA. Causing C Production, Hell's Bells, and they made this come alive. And they created that. Plus, we had Radio Hero come out for the first time from Chicago. Nate and Duke came out from Chicago. And if you know Liz and Dev, who run the Trididerot, they got engaged this time. So from here, we went on to the Shadow Chamber. That's a long story. It was a beautiful package, but nothing inside. But I'll have to save that for another time. It's gorgeous, gorgeous. And then the microwave research and destruction party. We did 2 years of intense projects. We want to do something fun and dangerous. And what's more fun and dangerous than putting all the things that you wanted to put in the microwaves for your kid, but you did. You're welcome, Mom and Dad. So we got 20 windows, or 20 windows? No. We got 20 microwaves, and we ended up putting everything you're not supposed to put in. We had the performances in between. You can see Dixon and Pete down in the corner at Rabbit that night performing. All in the name of science. Now technically this isn't Quixotic, but when I was part of the Detroit Fire Guild, this production followed the same formula of Quixotic. And this is Motor City Vaudeville we deal with again. There's people I know in this room that I would not have in my life without this production. Let's give that a hand. Again, immersiveness. We had the entire Russell Industrial Center decorated. We had a train going up and down the hallways. We had people clowning throughout the audience. And what the fuck was we worked for 3 acts, working up to the all singing, all dancing finale with 16 people in a small, tiny industrial room. Damn you and your arbitrary timelines. Damn it, your arbitrary timelines. So anyway, it was big, it was good. And then 2 years later, we did it again. This time, instead of gypsies versus clowns, we did a tent revival preacher. And we came back, and the people I met and worked with 3 years before, who blew my mind then, became professionals in 3 years. And they blew my mind in ways I couldn't have imagined a couple years previous. So let's give them a hand too. And then the big one. and sitting in the audience, I had those what the fuck experiences all over. And if you kind of feast your eyes in the middle here, the whole point was this was an alien invasion of a small town. The first act, you met the town. The second act, people were abducted. And the third act, they were transformed and made into something else. And what you see here was a woman willing to put 24 piercings from her neck down to her knees every night of the performance in order to transform herself into an alien harp.
Yeah!
That's Jess. Badass. So I was right about the cost when I went to flight to Mars that first time. It costs you time, lots of time. It costs you money, thousands of dollars, even when you get the grants. Misunderstandings, you get in fights with people, you don't get sleep. I got pneumonia twice. But why is it worth it? It's worth it because living in community is worth it. What we have here tonight is worth it. In and of itself. The most valued friendships in my life have come out of this, and it's worth it because, like I said, when you have that one person who comes up to you and says you made a difference, something changed, that's worth it. And like I said, if you find a formula that works for you, it's going to keep working on you, and that's why it's worth it. So there's a bunch of guidelines, but my security guards are getting riled up, so I'm not going to make them mad. I've seen that. I want that. So here, sum up. You don't need permission to do this. Say it again, Doxy. You don't need permission, right? Because people are going to say you're crazy. You don't need a degree. And that's very obvious. You need awesome people. Like you got here. You need a story to inspire, a plan to reassure. You need to work and play hard. And that's all for me tonight.